cannabis, mushrooms, acid, amphetamines, cocaine, then onto heroin, then onto crack. Heroin and crack took me to a different place. I've done 26 jail sentences. I had my children taken off me. I was a prostitute. I've nearly been killed. I've been put in boots of cars. I've been kidnapped. I nearly lost both my legs. I've been beat up with hammers, with axes. I had a cardioenteritis where my heart packed up with smoking so much crack. Yeah, miserable.
I started using drugs pretty much as soon as I left school. Started injecting amphetamines at 16, and I didn't stop till I was 48. By the time I was 48, all that I had were the clothes that I was studying, hepatitis C and no teeth. I don't say that because it's funny. It's just it was reality, and it was scary, and it was awful, and I couldn't look people in the face.
As you can imagine, in addiction, I lost everything. I lost my job, my home, one of my children, my dignity, all my morals and principles and values, confidence, self-esteem. I was just left like a shell.
Very quickly, addiction took over my life, and I spent the next 25 years on a roller coaster of in and out of prison, destroying my family, destroying my health, destroying my community. I took all my life, I took off everybody, I manipulated and robbed, stole, I did everything to feed that addiction.
I don't want to ever see my own kids make those choices. I want to make sure that people know what they're getting themselves into, because it's not a life that you want.
My son is an addict, so I'm the mum of an addict, and he's in recovery at the moment, and I feel that I'm in recovery as a mum. In his mid-20s, alcohol overtook him. The alcohol was in control of him, and I was certainly out of control in helping and looking after my son. But for me, I would always hope
I've had some rough years in the last 3 years. My husband passed away, and then you're dealing with all that stuff, and then afterwards you're living alone, and then you start having a drink, and then another drink, and then you become like you're stuck in your own house. You don't want to go to work.
Alcohol-related offences, just getting drunk, smoking cannabis, and basically being crazy and just doing crazy things and being irresponsible and taking things off of people that wasn't mine. Generally, just being a hooligan. My first court appearance resulted in a prison sentence, and they said then it was a short, sharp shock, and this was the prison sentence was going to teach me, and it was going to show me, and I was never going to commit an offence again. But of course, that wasn't the case for me neither, because in prison I was introduced to even more drugs at 17 years old.
I used to stay in my flat then and just start drinking vodka, three litres of vodka a day with, like I said, the MCAT, just hiding in my flat. And my liver got cirrhosis, and the liver is supposed to go to, at the most, up to 40 gamma GT, and mine was at 3,800. And I was just about dead.
Taking ecstasy and cocaine, stuff like that. Then one time I got a drink bought at a bar, and next thing I knew I woke up in an house full of men, and a man were on top of me. I pushed him off, and I got taxed straight back to my mum and dad's. So then I was just drinking more and more, just to block it out.
I was addicted to heroin again. And by this time I'm 32, and this went on for 5 years. I lost both businesses. I lost my children, I lost my partner, and I lost my home.
and I ended up at the basement project on August the 28th, 2016 with 2 bin liners, and that's all I had to show for my life, and using over a gram of heroin and probably about 4 rocks of crack a day.
Heartbreaking. I've lost friends through it, through death. Sort of thing. People have died. Yeah. A person of my age, 24, losing friends. That's not something you should have to go through. Not for just something to have a party with. I suppose it's sad.
I knew better this time. I wasn't going to get addicted to it. My life wasn't going to become manageable. I wasn't working as a prostitute on the streets. Life was going on for me. Only within about 2 months, I was addicted to heroin again.
And I guess this is the nature of addiction. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to stop using.
I had no education around drugs or like that, you know. No father figure, no mother figure. You know, just left to my own devices at an early age. So the path that I took was a drug path.
Young people need to realise that problems start when you're young. Just because you admit you have a problem when you're 40, 50, whatever, the problem starts when you're younger.
My addiction, I didn't know there was anyone like me. I just thought I was totally different to anyone, and that's because I never spoke out about how I was.
I didn't know, it took me, I was 38 by this point, and I didn't know about this place. Didn't know that there was this sort of help. I just assumed that I was some sort of monster, and I was just fucked in the head. Do you know what I mean? There was something seriously wrong with me. Until I come to the basement project and I was shown that, I suffer with the disease of addiction. And it can be worked with.
I thought because I was 48, I thought even if I stopped now, I wouldn't get a life. You know what I mean? My life's over, I've wasted it all. You can get clean, it doesn't matter how late you leave it, it's never too late to get your life back.
Larry's last desperate attempt at just getting better. And I went to rehab, and there I was exposed to an environment of recovery. Never seen recovery before, never knew what it looked like, never met anyone in recovery. All my friends were using drug addicts, and likewise, I'd never met anyone that had made it out the other side. And in this rehab, I was exposed to people that have made it out the other side. That was a catalyst for change for me. I was in an environment of positivity. People were getting well, people were smiling, people were getting on with life without drugs.
You go to prison, you go through reception, and they just frown upon you, because they're not educated. They see it as you being bad people. Nobody knows this is an illness. There's no way at school I thought, right, what do I want to be when I leave school? Right, I'll be an addict, I'll be a prostitute, I'll have my children took off me and I'll go to jail. Didn't sign up for that. That's where it took me. I'd have been better educated, had somebody stepped in, I'm sure my life would be different. Nobody is born that way. It's learned behaviours, it's things that they know, it's where they fit in, it's a sense of community.
We speak to about 60, 70 young people at a time, 16, 17-year-old, and just basically opening their eyes to where addiction can take you, because a lot of them at that age will be experimenting with drugs, either have or are currently experimenting with drugs, and it's just basically to give our experience around how we started, and if we can stop just one individual from going down the path that we went, then it's all worthwhile. I've got a great passion for doing that.
All I was doing was making myself look an idiot in the end and acting out a character, and then getting in with other people that I wouldn't normally associate with.
I'm now 60-year-old, and I'm sort of really starting again. I'm actually studying for an MVQ in health and social care. So for me, it's like really going through my youth again, maybe making up for lost time.
I'm so relieved he got the funding to get him into rehab, a rehab that really helped him at the same time. And that led on to him being in supported housing. At that time I felt, for the first time in 10 years perhaps, that I got a real break. I felt somebody else was looking after him and I wasn't looking after him. That was a massive relief to me.
My life's just all coming back together now. I see my kids regularly. I've got myself my own place that I'm moving into shortly, and I'm volunteering a lot. And it's all down to the basement and all the people around. That's been helping.
last September, is when I actually stopped drinking totally. So it's been like 10 months and 23 days, but who's counting? But I've gotten myself back a bit. I was able to come to the SMART meetings at night. It's open like 6 or 7 days a week, so you usually always have a place to go if you need to go, whether it's just to hang out or get over wanting to get high or something like that. There's usually people around to talk about it. And it's one of the best things I've ever done. I feel like I'm a new person compared to what I was last year.
Let's make a community, let's educate where it's cool to be drug-free, where it's cool to kind of be different, step out of the life that you've been offered or kind of been nurtured to by parents. Let's educate parents as well. I'm sure it'd be very, very different if we did.
There are so many people who, when they get to their 40s, their 50s, they realise they've been doing it for so long that it's harder and harder to get out. And having recovery services like the basement and things around makes it so much easier because you become part of a family. Everyone naturally feels very alienated and very withdrawn when they first come to these services, but everyone welcomes you in. Nobody makes you feel awkward, nobody makes you feel judged. Even if it's just sitting and having a coffee and whinging about how bad the weather is, it's having people to talk to who know what you're going through.
The counselling and psychotherapy I did for about 6 months, and I found it completely awakening. It was probably the singlest, most amazing thing I ever did. Since then I've been married, I've got a new family, have a wonderful job, beautiful house, beautiful car, beautiful wife, beautiful life, but most of all, what I have is I feel useful, truly, truly useful inside. If I'm going to carry a message to anyone that wants to experiment, just remember, pretty soon into your experimenting with drugs, with drink, with some of the new legal highs that are on the street, be warned, guys, be warned that if you're like me, this is the beginning of the end for you. If you're anything like me, I was a normal child, Jack the lad, loved life, loved everything, drugs, drink, it took everything from me. And I'm going to correct that, it didn't take anything from me really. I gave it freely, completely freely, in pursuit of that feeling of just being all right. Don't do it would be my question. Pretty soon, if you know you've got a problem, speak to someone that's been there, speak to someone that knows, speak to someone that can help you, and do it now. Because thinking Kirklees alone, there were 17 deaths for alcohol and drug related deaths in the last 3 months. The 3 months before that there was 19, the 3 months before that there was 12 I think. That's over 50 people in 9 months that have died of drinking and drug related illnesses. Don't let it be you.
I've now had nearly a year abstinence, and that's no drugs, no alcohol. I'm doing things like I run every other day, I cycle up to 40 miles on a weekend, I'm doing the coast to coast, Tough Mudder, Pretty Mudder. I've got my kids back, I've got 2 teenagers. I live in Elland, lovely 3-bedroom flat. But I think what I'm trying to say here is, you don't have to go through 25 years of addiction. It's okay to be yourself. I was constantly trying to change who I was. And it just led me to a life of misery. It took me to 38 to finally start living life on life's terms, if you like. And there is people that you can talk to. Don't keep this stuff bottled up. Speak to a teacher, speak to somebody. Just don't go down the same road that I did. You don't need to. Yeah.
I became abstinent on the 3rd of September 2012 and I haven't used a drug since. I'm due to celebrate 5 years clean in a few weeks. I absolutely love my job. What we've managed to establish in Kirklees is a real viable, visible recovery community. I get to celebrate 5 years. This weekend I go to see my son get married and all that stuff wouldn't have happened if I was using, because the reality is, had I continued to use, I would have died. I've lost my sister to this disease, I've buried 30 of my friends to this disease. It doesn't mess about this condition what we all suffer from. But I'm clean today, and I think that's all I want to say really.